It's like a Zoom conference.
I know, that's all it is. Just think of it as that. Hi everyone,
Hi.
I am Taluka from Markers and Minions, and this is
Jenna.
Jenna is my new team member. We live in the same community, and she is a teacher at Olive and Ruby's school, my daughter's school. And go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Jenna. So I've been teaching in Florida for 10 years, and I recently moved out of the classroom into an ESC position. So I pushed in, and my son also goes to school with her children. So
yeah. All right. So she is our community manager, so she's helping me just run all the Facebook groups. And so if you are active in our Facebook group, you'll probably come across Jenna. So that's the face to the name. All right, so tonight we're gonna be talking about how to fit it all in with Benchmark Advance, and this is something that I've been talking about for years because I had no choice but to figure out a way to fit it all in my first year with Benchmark. And so that's kind of like how this group was started and what it's founded upon. But we have a lot of new teachers, especially a lot of new teachers from Florida, right?
Yep.
So I figured it's a good time to go live and just have a conversation about different ways that we can try and fit everything in when it comes to Benchmark.
because we know that it can be overwhelming, and we want to make sure that you don't feel that way. So we're here to help.
Yeah, we'll do our best. All right, so back in the day, I'll give a little backstory. Back in the day, I was teaching before my combo, actually. I was very pregnant, and I was on the adoption committee for my school district, and at the time I was teaching in Los Angeles. And we had to choose between like Nat Geo, Benchmark, and I feel like it was Houghton Mifflin or Houghton Mifflin.
That's who we use now in my district.
Yeah, it was like one of those, Wonders. So we examined all of them. We kind of piloted a unit in our own classrooms, and Benchmark ended up winning, and we adopted. So the following year, about like 1 or 2 days before we started school, we had just like boxes upon boxes delivered to our classroom, just put right on the student desks, and I was like, okay. And I was super pregnant still. Wait, was I super pregnant?
Meet the
still?
teachers come in, and you're probably like, why are these boxes on my desk?
Yeah, I was like, I was not in the headspace for it. And then, and they gave me a combo. So I was teaching a 2-3 combo, and it was my first time ever in a combo class. So I had like double the materials. And I'm just trying to like set up my classroom and make it pretty and label things and learn my students' names. And I had to deal with all these boxes.
New curriculum.
Yeah. So I then quickly realized, like, okay, in order for me to just like not shove these in the cabinets and forget about it entirely, I need to start with like analyzing the program itself and looking for patterns. So I had taught, I believe it was Treasures. Is anyone familiar with that old program, Treasures? So I was in a treasure school, and I was able to figure out like, okay, spelling is on Monday, and just the weekly patterns, the daily patterns, and that helped me make sense of it. So then I basically did the same thing with Benchmark. And I realized that when you learn the patterns, you kind of start to feel a little bit more confident, and as you're going through and teaching the lessons throughout the year, in the beginning of the year, you're really dependent on holding the teacher manual, and you are tempted to just kind of like,
don't let me go.
Help! I need you. And you like teach to the script, all the little scripted portions, but eventually you'll start to like be confident and realize like, I've got this. I've taught this spelling routine or this routine for introducing new vocabulary 4, 5, 6 times already now. I can close this TRS, which is really a crutch.
Scary, though. It can be scary.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I'm like, finally, get out of here. So you can finally close that TRS and kind of own your curriculum, right? So the first tip I would say is like, learn what the patterns are. Look at the week 1, the week 2, the week 3, realize like what's different between the weeks, what's the same, and then look at it from a unit perspective. How's this unit similar to the next unit in terms of patterns? And then once you see that, you're able to plan a lot easier as well.
Yeah, and that's definitely an important piece of benchmark, is knowing the curriculum and then being able to plan for that.
Yeah, so I created these benchmark planning templates, which are free on my TPT shop, Markers and Minions, if you just go and download them or search in our group. They're shared in our group millions of times. And it's like a weekly layout, unit layout and a weekly layout, and it helps you pull out your lessons from the TRS. And then you start to see like, oh, I'm teaching this graphic features lesson in week 1. We're going to be analyzing the illustrations from this story. And then in week 3, it comes up again, and we're going to be analyzing the illustrations again in this story.
Right.
So you start to see those patterns, and that really helps because, and I always say this, like if you're teaching it on, those all our kids, sorry, they're getting ice. So if you're teaching the lesson, that graphic features lesson in week 1, and you're something comes up or you run out of time, your lesson's now extended to like 30 minutes, and you're like, man, I really need to just move on. Otherwise, I'm not going to get to these other lessons that I need to teach. Then you can feel okay about it because you know it's going to come up again in week 3.
Right. You feel more confident in making those teacher decisions because it's going to repeat back again.
And then on the flip side, you'll know if something does not come up again.
Right.
So you're like, this is a priority lesson. I have to make sure that I get to this. I have to make sure that I've like planned this out to the T so that I'm not going overboard, because it's kind of my only shot. So by planning ahead of time, especially using those templates and pulling things out and looking for repetition and things like that, it gives you the insight that you need to just kind of like, own things and feel better about things.
We know that's overwhelming. Like I know, especially being in the classroom and just feeling like, oh my gosh, when do I even have time to do that? And me as a teacher, I would say, get with your grade level team and try to like divide and conquer, or, sit down together, and 2 heads are better than 1, even if it's just you and a partner, and just get with that person, so then you don't feel like you're taking it all on yourself, but you feel like you're taking ownership, and I feel like when you're prepared and you own your curriculum, then you're going to be a better teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. My team teacher was Miss Gallego, who I don't think is watching this because she moved to Texas and she doesn't use Benchmark anymore, but she was my teacher bestie, and we were able to kind of plan things out together. And a lot of the times, honestly, we just joined our classes. We had a ton of kids all in the same classroom, and we taught things together because we were like figuring it out together.
Yeah. And that's really important. So.
Yeah. So one other thing that I learned to do eventually, especially because I was teaching a combo class, was I learned how to combine certain lessons. So in my case, I had to combine 2nd and 3rd grade lessons whenever I could. And that's tricky because it's like, well, which text do we use? Because the lesson's going to be very similar. You're going to find, analyzing characters in both grade levels, but you're going to be using different texts. So I was able to teach the skill, for example, what it means to analyze a character, and then kind of go individually into each grade level in more depth. But I guess front-loading the skill together was really helpful when I was teaching a combo. And then also when I was teaching like a straight 3rd grade class, I could combine certain lessons that were like, maybe on day 1 and day 3 using the same text. I could put them together because I could see like, well, this is a really short lesson, and this is a really short lesson, and it's doing the same thing. Let's just knock it out and get it all done all together,
And that helps you to be able to fit it all in, because if I'm putting those 2 lessons together, now I have free time later on to maybe fit something else in that you wouldn't have been able to if you kept those 2 lessons on different days.
Yeah, exactly. So you can feel the flexibility, feel free to be flexible in like moving your lessons around, maybe cutting things out because you've taught that lesson a million times already and your kids are good, or moving things around. Like feel flexible and feel like you don't need to stick to what Benchmark says that you need to stick to. All right? So That was our first tip. What was the second one?
Second one was
Where's our outline?
right here. The spiral. Trusting the spiral.
Yeah, so we kind of talked about that already. But so the way the program's designed is that things spiral over and over. So that's why you can teach a lesson on finding the main idea and summarizing the key details in 15 minutes, which sounds
crazy,
ridiculous. Yeah. You're just going to have a bunch of glossed over children. But knowing that it's going to come up pretty much every single week with every text, with every unit, will kind of like, you trust that process, knowing that each week they're going to be diving a little bit deeper. They're going to be practicing that skill again. So there are definitely some standards or skills that are going to come up a lot more often, and then some that don't. So, but just being knowledgeable of that spiral and then trusting that spiral will kind of help you, guide you when you are like I said, 30, 40 minutes into your lesson and your kids are so confused and you're like, did I bomb this lesson? Is this grade level appropriate even? Like, am I doing these kids a disservice? You can take a deep breath and know that, like, okay, this is just their first chance at this or their second chance at this, and they're going to get lots of chances.
And it's also, it helps you to set your timer to keep you on track. So following your daily schedule and then trusting the spiral. So if your lesson is supposed to go an hour and you're at 65 minutes, your timer went off, cut it.
Be done.
Yeah, just make that teacher decision. You don't want to keep, take one lesson and roll it into 3 days. And now you're even farther behind and feeling even more overwhelmed. So cut it and then hit it in small groups, or you're going to cover it again in 2 days.
Yeah, right. And then the kids will get used to it too. If you're setting a timer, you can say like, okay, guys, we have 20 minutes. So let's give this 20 minutes our all. Let's stay on task because this is all we've got for this lesson today. And so it's kind of a motivating factor as well.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're not going to recess.
Uh-oh. Whatever we gotta do.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
When we said combining, a lot of people asked, when do you fit in assessments? That was a common theme that I was seeing in the group. And so, do you want to talk a little bit about that, or just yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so for the assessments, now I'm going to talk about what I did in the beginning of the year to kind of make it so that the assessments weren't these giant, cumbersome, awful torture sessions. So in Unit 1, I full disclosure, I did not collect any data from my students. Right? So, I mean, we have all the other tests and all that stuff in the beginning of the year anyway, so I'm like, I'll just use some of that. But for the benchmark tests, I would use the weekly test, not the really long, crazy one, but the shorter weekly one. I would use them as modeling resources. So I would model how to take the test. So I would read the test, the story, the text, then I would read the questions, I would read the answers, I would show them how I literally flip to the first page again and I go back to the text to find that, and then I go back to the question, wait a minute, and then I go back and I show them how I annotate the text, and then my process of elimination for, answer choice D just like has nothing to do with this. It's maybe between A and B, and then I would really think aloud and show them, walk them through my metacognitive modeling process, and then I would underline like keywords too in there. So I would say like, remember we did a lesson about main idea and key details. Well, when we're testing it, this is what that test question looks like, sounds like. So we did that for all of Unit 1. By the time we got to Unit 2, I would read them the text, I would read them the questions and the answer choices, but they would choose their answer. And it was a guided process. We'd go through, okay, number 1, number 2, number 3.
Scaffolding, taking a little bit away.
Yeah. And then by Unit 3, I let go completely, except for my kids who, I had to read the test aloud to them because of their IEPs, which was a big chunk of my class, but I would pull them aside. Everyone else was on their own. So it was to the point where they were familiar with the tests and they weren't just, I feel like that probably helped with the timing of it. They weren't just sitting with a test on their desk like, oh my God, and drawing out the time. So the weekly tests eventually became like these quick assessments for us, and I was able to fit those in on Fridays. So for me, Fridays, when I would do, using the California edition, I would do my last lesson, which was usually comparing and contrasting the two texts, or two characters or whatever. And then when we were done with that, then I would give the assessment. And sometimes I would have to like give it after lunch because it didn't fit during our before small groups or whatever. The long unit assessment I would give over a 4th week. And so the units are 3 weeks, right? But I would extend them to 4 weeks so that during that 4th week, I could give a little bit of the assessment every day, preferably in the morning when their brains were fresh. And we'd break it up so that it wasn't this really cumbersome thing. And it was also kind of nice because I could, if I wanted to, I could tear off the top pages and start grading some of those already. And so I wasn't stuck with like a giant stack at the end of the week to grade. So that was another cool thing about doing it that way. And then also in that 4th week, we would do an extension project or connect art or whatever it was that I came up with. And
fun stuff. A lot of people say, when do you fit in the fun? Well,
yeah. Like when do you have time for projects? Well, you don't. You have to make time.
Make the time.
So, and then I would also introduce the next unit at the end of that 4th week. So that 4th week was really a transition. I was assessing from the previous unit. I was doing a fun project, extension idea, and then I was also introducing the next unit because I'm a project glad teacher. I like to introduce units very visually. I have inquiry charts, pictorial charts where we're going over a giant anchor chart together, and I'm introducing a concept, and we're talking about the vocabulary that we're about to hear for the next 3 weeks and things like that. And so that also helps actually,
right,
because once we do jump into the next unit, I'm spending a lot less time saying, wait, let me tell you about corn first, hold on, or like whatever the topic is, because they have this background knowledge already because I've front loaded it. And that kind of helps with fitting things in as well. So I was telling Jenna, like, I don't do that for every unit, because some units, like unit 6, I'm like, I barely don't even want this thing to get to 3 weeks. I'm over it.
So that goes back to knowing your curriculum. Knowing your curriculum, and then you're able to make those decisions that are best for you and your class.
Yeah. So those are some of the tips that we have for you today.
Yeah.
Did we answer the other questions?
Most of the people were saying, when do you assess? When do you fit in the assessments? And how are you able to fit in projects and fun things? So
and the daily schedule.
Oh, yeah, we are. So I will be posting the daily schedule that Toluca used when she was in the classroom. And then also, if you missed the video, that will be posted also. As we recorded. So my daily schedule will show you like how I broke down my whole group versus my small group. It was my schedule from when I taught a straight 3rd grade class. If anyone's teaching a combo and you want to see my schedule from when I taught my combo, just let me know and I can find it for you. Combos are like really unique though. Yeah,
I had a lot of
common.
Yeah, and I had a lot of support from my grade level teams. So everyone kind of has different things going on. But anyway, that's it. Let us know if you have any questions or concerns or struggles. What do you need help with? We're planning on doing these lives every couple of weeks.
Our next one is going to be right before Halloween, so I'll be announcing a contest for that.
Oh, cute.
So,
Look at you.
Yeah. Bring in the fun.
Do the contest, okay?
So we can see. We can pick a winner. We're going to pick, maybe our kids can pick the winner.
Oh, that's a cute idea.
That'll be fun, yeah.
Okay. Do we have a topic for the next live video yet?
So it's going to be the pumpkin, character trait, pumpkins.
Oh, cute. Okay.
Yeah, so some of that, and then that's all I got so far.
Okay, sounds good.
But it'll be 2 weeks. It'll be in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And if you have any topics to request for us, anything you'd like us to talk about, we're going to pretend we have our own podcast or something and just let us know. We're here for you. All right.
Happy Sunday.
Bye, guys.